regulations and rules that come down on this from the Democratic National Committee. Tyler has worked tirelessly along with Scott and I to put this together. We've got some really good things going. I think that Scott will explain some of the questions that you may have so that you feel a bit more at ease at this. In addition, we're going to have a lot of training on these things. So right now, this is just the initial thing, but we've got to get it into the DNC pretty soon for approval. Scott?
Thank you, Chair Larson. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented on the delegate selection plan during the official 30-day period to comment when this was posted online with a press release on March 13th. I want to thank them, everyone who commented. I also want to thank Tyler Hogan, our party affairs director, for essentially spearheading this and working in tandem with him to come up with a caucus plan that I think will allow us to have a robust debate over who North Dakota will select in the caucus, and then move on to electing Democrats in November. So just a couple of background things here for all of you. The DNC gives state parties a guideline on what they can and can't do for their delegate selection plan. That's the first thing. Those things include were the byproduct of the Unity Commission between Sanders delegates and Clinton delegates in 2016, and was voted on at the DNC and approved in 2018 in Chicago in August. So that is what a lot of this comes from. There are certain things that we have to do. One is we have to make the process open and accessible to anybody who wishes to participate and identifies themselves as a Democrat or somebody who will vote for the Democrats in November. Since we don't have to worry about party registration or any voter registration, this isn't an issue for us. But what it does preclude from us doing is what happened in 2016 with a more traditional caucus at a certain period of time in certain locations on a certain date. Second thing is there needs to be a period of early voting. That is another requirement that the DNC prescribed to all state parties. And then the third thing that I want to point out is there has been in our comments during the comment period that I want to clarify now for everyone is what a caucus is and what a primary is. It is the difference between a caucus and a primary is not how it is run. A difference between a caucus and a primary is who runs it. So a primary is run by the state, by the Secretary of State's office. That would be a primary. A caucus is run by the party. So the how is immaterial for those. So I'll describe in as much detail and as quickly as I can the delegate selection process, both the Firehouse Caucus, which is essentially a party-run primary, and then the method of selecting delegates. So our proposed date for the Presidential Firehouse Caucus is March 10th. This is a week after Super Tuesday in North Dakota. That being said, ballots can be requested by voters starting on January 20th, 2020, with the first sent out on January 22nd, 2020. Early voting, vote by mail, will be done between January 20th and February 25th is when the last day a ballot can be requested, and all vote by mail ballots must be postmarked by March 5th. Following that period of voting for about a month, we will have our Firehouse Caucus on. Going back a little bit, all vote by mail ballots, just so everyone is clear, election vendor. All ballots will be sent to a P.O. box in Bismarck, managed by them, and will be opened and voted on March 10th. March 10th is the Presidential Firehouse Caucus. So by Firehouse Caucus, this means that it's, like I said, a party-run primary. It is, the election will be overseen by the state party, contracting out with a third-party election vendor. We had a request for proposal for numerous vendors. We selected GES. They have done firehouse primaries and caucuses before, and they will be overseeing this. I want to be very clear here with the Firehouse Caucus. Districts are not overseeing the elections. What we ask from districts are for volunteers to help us staff the polling locations. And GES will be out about 5 days before the primary to help train you guys, train any volunteers on how to do this. But districts aren't responsible for counting. They aren't responsible for managing the elections. We ask for volunteers to help essentially greet people, check people in, make sure, check their names to a database to make sure that they aren't voting. If they voted early by mail, they aren't coming to vote on election day. So I want to be clear on that. March 10th Presidential Firehouse Caucus will have 14 locations. Those locations are Fargo, Grand Forks, Devils Lake, Wapaton, Valley City, Jamestown, Bismarck, Minot, Williston, Dickinson, MHA Nation, Standing Rock, Turtle Mountain, and Spirit Lake. So 14 locations, 10 cities plus the 4 tribes. I will take questions at the end. That being said, the election results, this is a DNC rule, is a 15% threshold. So if your candidate doesn't get 15%, they are not eligible for any delegates from North Dakota. This is not a party rule. This is a DNC rule. That has to be done. In terms of the actual selection of the delegates, it is a concurrent yet somewhat different process. Delegates to the DNC, district delegates, will be selected. So let me back up here. There are North Dakota has 21 delegates to the DNC. Excuse me?
Go to this page.
Yes, go to that page. Thank you, Josh. North Dakota has 21 delegates. 12 of those delegates are district delegates. Those are who you'll be voting, the percentage of which you'll be voting for on March 10th or earlier. Following that, there are 4 superdelegates, the 2 DNC committeemen and women, sorry, Dina, as well as the chair and vice chair. These superdelegates, as has been discussed in the media numerous times, cannot vote on a first ballot. They can only vote on a second ballot unless somebody has won the nomination outright. There are 2 party leaders and elected official delegates. These delegates are members of the legislature, members of city government, who are elected into city governments. And then finally, there are 2 at-large delegates who are elected at a statewide level. Going back to the district delegates, how these are going to be selected is a process concluding at the state convention. At your district convention, your districts will be electing nominees to be DNC delegates. If you are in a district that Obama and Clinton won, you will get 3 nominees to the state convention to be DNC delegates. These delegates can run uncommitted, or they can run for a candidate that they so choose to support. That is at your district convention. If you are an Obama-Trump district, you will get 2 nominees. If you are a Romney-Trump district, you will get 1 nominee for DNC delegate. All districts will get 1 nominee for alternate. to the state convention on March 21st. March 21st, the convention, state convention delegates will vote on delegates to the DNC by the percentage of the Firehouse Caucus. So if, for example, if candidate A gets 50% of the vote, six of those district delegates have to be supporting candidate A. Again, keeping in mind the 15% threshold to be eligible. After the state convention, the few remaining districts, both PLEOs, party leaders and elected officials, and the two at-larges will be voted on by the Committee on Delegates. This committee consists of all party officers, chair, vice chair, treasurer, secretary, and the two DNC members. And those PLEOs and at-large delegates will be voted then. I just want to make clear, when Tyler, Warren, and I sat down, when we talked with stakeholders, we wanted to make sure that we were getting something out of this. Most importantly, we wanted to use this as a chance to, A, force candidates to focus on North Dakota and issues important to North Dakota. We think the March 10th caucus date will force people to do that, understanding that the future is hard to predict. I still presume that we won't have a presumptive nominee or an actual nominee by March 10th. The second thing is, we wanted to make sure that delegates, that the caucus was an opportunity to force presidential candidates to help build up the party at the district level. Whether it be making sure presidential candidates are getting their supporters to district conventions to vote on their nominees for delegate, making sure that they're getting their supporters who were elected state convention delegates to the state convention to vote for people. This requires presidential nominees to not only organize at the district level, but to also organize the classic meat and potatoes, drag them out GOTV strategy for both vote by mail and March 10th. And then finally, we wanted to make sure that this doesn't distract from our purpose of getting Democrats elected in North Dakota. We understand that overseeing a caucus and overseeing delegates to the DNC is one of the most important things at a presidential level. But coming from Massachusetts experiencing this in 2016, I can say firsthand, without a major statewide race like Senate or Congress being particularly competitive that year in Massachusetts, this enveloped, and also being on the border of a swing state like North Dakota is with Minnesota, this enveloped a state party, and in Massachusetts we lost focus, and in turn we lost legislative seats in 2016. We want to make sure that we are having a robust debate, that candidates support their candidates, and that when it's all said and done, we let bygones be bygones and focus on doing what we can to not only get Democrats elected at the legislative statewide level, but make sure that Donald Trump is a one-term president. So I know you all have a bunch of questions. I do want to clarify one thing. This delegate selection plan is not a guide for districts. It is a resource. I would encourage you to utilize it if you have any questions, but it is not a guide for districts. It is a rule book for presidential campaigns. That's really what its purpose is. I want to thank Tyler for his work. I want to thank the many folks, some of whom are here, who have agreed to serve on the Affirmative Action Committee and help. We have gone from a Affirmative Action Committee of 3 from 2016 to an Affirmative Action Committee of 11, with all of the tribes having a representative, having a veteran representative, LGBT, Hispanic, African American, Young Democrat, Labor, women. we have a fairly robust affirmative action committee to make sure that, and disability, to make sure this is as robust and inclusive as possible. I don't want to address any questions that refrain from hypotheticals or anything that can go us down a rabbit hole, but I am happy to answer specific questions. Yes?
I've got a couple, so
Okay.
stay with me. So you're consolidating the districts. The districts didn't have anything to do with the caucus.
Besides providing
Repeat the
So
question.
you guys,
Yes,
you've
could
got
you-
14 locations.
Yes. So the question was, we're consolidating the districts. Am I correct there? If that's that's an interesting way to put it. I will say, though, it is important to remember, and I didn't mention this, that we will have results at the district level. One of the reasons why we went with this vendor is they're gonna be able to help us count the results at the district level. When you get your ballot, you will see, your District 2, correct? You will get a ballot that has a unique barcode on it, that is unique to District 2. And we will have, and when, those votes are tallied, you will have, we will be able to count electronically by District 2 with State Party and GES staff.
Okay, so in 2016, the districts ran the caucus.
Districts will not be running the caucus.
We're not gonna have to worry
No.
about that.
No.
Right, and right in with that, who's taking care of the advertising for this?
Yes, we do.
And the mail ballots.
Yes, so we do have a advertising plan, or a communications plan, pardon me. It mostly focuses on earned media through radio, television. We think the fact that this is going to be held the week after Super Tuesday, where we're not at a point, say in June, as we were in 2016, where I think we would say the press was maybe ready to move on from the primary. We're gonna have it in the heat of the primary, essentially 10 days from the earliest day we can do it. Second thing is, we will be investing in social media, targeted ads to Democrats, advertising in daily newspapers, tribal radio, daily newspapers, and earned media through radio and television to make sure people are aware of this.
And that last question is, you do realize with Western North Dakota that distance is everything. And for instance, District 2 is 6,000 square miles. And getting from one end to the other, so are people up in, extreme northwest North Dakota, gonna know where to go and
So,
drive?
yes, so one of the things with our,
Who can they mail?
so the question is how to utilize rural North Dakota and make sure they're aware of it. One of the reasons we chose a vote by mail as an early vote option, as opposed to in-person early voting, is because of rural North Dakota, so they can vote by mail. When we do our advertising will start in January, in terms of targeted ads on social media, as well as newspaper ads and earned media, such as doing press releases, interviews on the radio, etc. We'll start during early vote to tell people to request a ballot by going to caucus@Dem-NPL.com or calling our 1-800 number to give with their name and address, so we can mail them a ballot and they can mail it back to the P.O. Box in Bismarck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sam and then Justin.
Just a quick question. As far as places to vote, I saw that there's Fargo and Valley City. My district's right smack dab in between them. So if Buffalo wants to go to Valley City to vote, will that cause any issues, or will we be wanting them to go to Fargo or something like that?
So one of the things we've discussed with GES election is making sure that they have ballots in stock on election day from all the plausible districts that could request a ballot that day. So obviously, with that point in mind, I think it's a good point that both the Valley City location and the Fargo location have ballots for District 22. And I think we're gonna, I think even if we don't expect a lot of people, we'll have some for Fargo and for District 22 as well as Valley City and Williston, even though I don't expect too many people from District 2 to drive out because it's a large district. We'll have District 2 ballots ready to go. And you don't need to know your district. As long as you know your address, you should be okay. Yes.
And just a second quick question. If we have our state convention, obviously it's still in March, so probably the dust isn't gonna settle, or there's not gonna be an outright winner. When the convention comes in July, and say the winner of the North Dakota, caucus dropped out, do those delegates become uncommitted, or do they become, are they bound?
That's up to the presidential candidate, from my understanding.
I
So,
just didn't know if there was any leap or any bylaw.
so going back in presidential history, I know, for example, in 2004, a lot of the candidates released their ballots to John Kerry, and in 2008, Hillary Clinton released her delegates to Barack Obama. So it's not up to us, above our pay grade. Justin?
My question was, we get this a lot in the primary and the general election ballot tracking. Will this vendor, if I'm Joe Schmo and I send my ballot in, can I go online and verify that it got to the vendor to be counted? Because we run into there's a lot of mail issues with mail-in ballots, and that really helps people at home. They're gonna be asking me when I tell them we're doing this, can they find out if the ballot actually was received or not after we sent it?
So I don't know if we'll have an online website with ballot tracking. What I can say is this: we will know, and the reason we have it for March 5th is because, as the postmark, is because we're going to have a computer system set up where we have a record of everyone who has voted or who has turned in a ballot by vote by mail on Election Day. So we can when we talk to GES about that, I think that's having a website is something we can explore, but we will have a database of people to match with who has voted, who voted through the vote by mail, so they don't vote twice on Election Day.
The worst case, if I'm curious, if we didn't get a website or something, I could call the office and find out, well, I suppose it'd be the vendor, not you guys wouldn't know either, but.
It would be the
There are
office.
a lot of ballots that don't ever make it. I hate to say the postal service has issues, but they do. And
No objection here. No, I think that's a fair point, but I would say we will know who has voted by mail, so they could call, at worst case scenario, they could call the party office and ask, has Joe Schmo voted? Anybody else before I reach out? Phil Franklin.
I just had a question about the apportionment of the delegates. Does that pose a threat to
Excuse me?
the apportionment? You're talking about if you went Trump, Romney, for the delegates.
Yes.
Does that pose any inherent threat to the direction of the party? That's the question.
Any inherent threat to the direction?
Yeah, so you said, if you
Yes.
win, so the last election, you get 3,
Nominees.
okay.
You get, not delegates, you get nominees. So you're District 40, correct?
I am.
So that would be a one seat, a one nominee. You are nominating people to run for DNC delegate, to be a delegate to the DNC, to be voted on at the state convention.
Yes, and the states that went further left in the last election, get up to 3.
Yes.
Parts of the state, right?
So we don't judge necessarily by which districts are, because again, this is a requirement created by the DNC to allow more options for districts that voted Democratic, because theoretically there are more Democrats in those districts. So this is a DNC rule that we have to follow, which would say that because since we don't have numerous congressional districts, we have to come up with something that that would have more more options for districts that voted for the Democratic nominee, but not necessarily for districts that voted and then districts that had voted for the Republican nominee. That's not a commentary on districts that are moving more Democratic or more Republican. It's just a comment on the actual results of things. So, or even their district organization. We don't factor those into consideration. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but the more left-leaning your district is, the more opportunities you have to get
Josh, yes.
You bring up a great point. The good thing that works to the disadvantage of that theory is we're in North Dakota. There are only 5 districts that were Obama Clinton.
4.
4.
Four.
So that's 12 seats that go to the left, let's say, right? But there are 35 some that were Romney Trump districts. So there's 35 of you all that get 1. Theoretically, I don't know the exact number. So there are more from those red districts than there are those from our left districts, based on the map. But I understand your concern, but that helps neuter that a little bit.
Yeah. Tyler, you had a point?
Yeah, I just want to add to that quickly that it is a DNC protocol. I don't know if you would.
I did mention it is a DNC protocol.
Perfect. And there wasn't really anything that we could get out of it. That was the best we could get as a result of the 2016 presidential election and the 2012.
So I will say, like, for example, California, which has 55 congressional seats, their most Democratic congressional seat will have more nominee slots to DNC delegate than their most Republican congressional seat. So this is not exclusive to North Dakota. This is, I hate to say it is what it is, but it is what it is. Rachel, you had your hand up?
Yes, do we have the ability to amend the delegate selection plan?
Not until we have a motion.
Not till we have
Those will be in order after your question and answer period is done.
Okay. What Chris said.
Oh, sorry, in case you didn't hear. So she asked, will there be opportunities to amend? So right now, we're still kind of a Q&A session right now. People are still wanting their questions answered. I would advise, because maybe your questions still need to be answered and will impact how you vote on certain motions or certain amendments, et cetera. So once Q&A period has concluded, Chair Larson will then return to the podium and then ask for a motion to approve the delegate selection plan. In which case, one of you will likely will say so moved, and that's when amendments will become an option.
Okay, okay. Joan, I'll take you.
One question is, how many total nominees will this bring forward to the convention?
Well, if we were, the future is hard to predict. If we were to do math, we have 12 nominees from Obama Clinton districts. We have 6 nominees from Trump Clinton districts, District 16, 18, and 42. So that's a total of 18 plus 35. That is 53. Catherine.
Yeah, is there what's the fiscal impact of this? And who is paying for it?
Yes, so very good question, Catherine. So as we see in the delegate, the question was, what's the fiscal impact? And this was something we were very mindful of when formulating this plan, because we're of the opinion that if every dollar that we have to spend on this is a dollar we can't spend on organizing in our coordinated campaign. So our goal is to break completely even or marginal in the red. So right now, we are going to charge presidential candidates $2,500 to get on the ballot. The advantage of having this early is the deadline we have to have it 75 days before the election we can have it as the deadline, but it can't be until after January 1st. So we will have the deadline on January 3rd, when more candidates are theoretically still running, because it's a month before Iowa. We're also doing things to keep costs low. Keep costs low, that's why we selected, for example, only 14 locations as opposed to 1 in all 47 districts. That's why we're having machines, why we're having most of our votes counted in Bismarck. We will have about 60% voted in Bismarck, all to keep cost as low as possible.
Okay, let's say for instance, there aren't enough candidates
Mm-hmm.
to pay in that $2,500 and it doesn't cover the cost of our.
We'll be working with,
What happens?
we have created a finance plan, we'll be working with